All right, guys, welcome back to another Conscious Conversation. As always, I'm joined by Craig Seaton. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, man. Yourself?
Yeah, really good. I noticed that you don't have the background today. What's going on?
I'm in the living room. Changed.
Okay.
Yeah, the background's it's in the bedroom. That.
Oh, okay. Is that why you were shooting it last time?
Yeah.
Yeah. It looked really nice. It looked really
Yeah, it's
nice in the
nice.
background.
Nice. I'm gonna get another one, I think. 'Cause that one's not full size, but it looks good. I'm just gonna get a bigger one.
Was that the one that you used at the Holistic Hub?
It's the same one. Yeah, we've got two of them. So we've got one here and one there.
Yeah, so let's talk about that first of all. How is the Holistic Hub stuff going? Obviously, because of the lockdown and stuff, you're probably not using the space.
Nah, it's not been used at all. It's just staying there until we can work in spaces with people. It's just gonna be doing what it's doing, just chilling on its own.
Yeah. What was the concept behind it, if you want to go into that?
The hub. Just creating a space, really, to bring everything that we talk about in these conversations, to have a space where people can come for spiritual teachings, for a bit of a community, a space for one-on-one workshops, for the healing, for the breath work, for the energy work, for meditation, and also for other teachers to come and use the space if they wanted to find somewhere that they can have consistently. Because putting workshops on in town is great, and you get to use different venues, but it can be difficult. It'd be quite costly as well, and you can't always guarantee the times if you want to put a workshop on for a certain space. While if I just had this place, it was our home, we could always use it, which was what it was great for, man. Really, really good space to use as well. And a project that we built from the ground upwards. There was nothing in there when we got it, so we got to decorate it and create it how we want. And my dad helped out and built a little desk in there, and yeah, it's lovely. It was a nice thing to do. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a really good concept. I remember when you pitched the idea to me when we just got to know each other after Block opened, and I came to your breathwork workshop at Gym and Juice. And yeah, I was down. I was really down with the idea, but I just think the timing of it just wasn't right for us, was it? The whole lockdown that came in at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to be fair, we did mention the idea of doing podcasts, didn't we, at the hub? Even though in the wintertime it was quite cold in there.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So I just want to touch on what we were talking about last time. I think we really delved into a really interesting conversation. And I had a couple of people messaging me saying, they really did resonate with that message of time management, because we all struggle with that. We really do struggle with trying to fit in people in, the important people in our lives in those times, and also trying to manage work and the other stuff as well. So, yeah. Do you remember the last thing we mentioned? And we said we need to talk about this in a separate podcast. I can't remember what it was now.
I'm not sure.
I'm supposed to replay this podcast and catch the last 5-10 minutes. And I'm trying to figure out what we mentioned that would be an entire topic on its own. But yeah, no, it's fine. Never mind.
I was finishing a fast today, something I wanted to discuss in your experience with that. I've just done 3 days of liquid fast, so one of the easiest ones I've done, really, because I've done water fast for 7 days before, with a day of dry fast and no water. 10 days on the lemon detox diet. That was really energetical and very enjoyable, actually. And then different levels of fast in between, but I just thought I'd do a clear out. And I've just done 3 days with liquids, so I had honey in that time as well, tablespoons of honey. Blended my smoothies in, so I'd still have my wheatgrass, my maca powder, my spirulina, etc. Passion fruit, and yeah, just fruits that were soft and didn't require any chewing or digestion. And I'm finishing that today. I've not had anything yet. I've got the morning cacao as always, and I'll be breaking my fast after this, actually. So I'll get some lunch. And just the benefits of fasting is so incredible. It's like one of those things, I think, that we forget how useful and powerful it is until we go back to it. Like when people talk about deep experiences of meditation, or the psychedelics, or anything that we find useful and powerful, is you never really recall how the height of it when you're doing it. And that's what fasting is so great. Every time I come back to it, it's like, wow, so good for the body. And I think one of the main benefits is really seeing how the mind slows down, and all the energy that would be so erratic or useful but you can just really use the time to go in. With meditation becomes so much easier and so stiller, and therefore the external, I suppose, the external actions that we would get caught into start to drop away as well, because it's not just a sense of I don't have the energy to partake in that, but it's you don't want to, and you can be quite, I mean, there's emotional content with it where we can be quite experiencing the different levels of emotions, but it's very peaceful, very calm, very just enjoyable, just kind of gliding. But like this morning, just and a massive feel towards spirituality, to just wanting to meditate, to just wanting to be calm, and not through force, like, right, I've got to do my practice or I need to get this done. It's just there. Anything on a quieter level, fasting is great for, and I really think it helps dissolve any habits that we want to get rid of, anything that's overexcitement, anything that takes a lot of energy. Caffeine based as well. It can like get rid of those. New food, it definitely reprograms how you see food. Yeah, it's wonderful, man. So I just wanted to bring that up today and tap into any of your experience you've done with fasting, or to hear what your thoughts are towards it.
Yeah, I think that's a great topic to go into. It's not something that we covered before. But yeah, where do we start with fasting? So the current fasting protocol you're on right now, so remind me again what you're doing. So is it just liquids? Currently
it's liquids. So I've been through loads of different kinds of the fasting before. Probably the toughest was the 7-day water fast, where that was just water. 10-day lemon detox diet, where you would take natural tree syrup from these high quality trees with lemon and cayenne pepper, which is a bit of a drink I have every day now anyway, based off that. But this has just been liquids, so much easier in what you have to go about. Like, still get hungry maybe the first 2 nights, but yeah, it's easy to overcome that. It's not really a point. It's like, oh, I don't feel like I'm ever going to eat at some point. It's like, oh, that smells nice, but there's never a pull to break the fast. So yeah, this has just been liquids, so I can make smoothies. I've had my honey, so getting my level of natural sugars in there. Just making digestion easier and having to clean out and slow myself down.
Yeah, so let's talk about that then. So with the fasting protocol, everyone tends, obviously these days we've got so much research that shows that fasting is a beneficial way of to almost give your body a rest. But I feel as though, so in Hinduism, we have this thing called Ekadashi, and it basically means that every 15th day of the month, we tend to do a fast. Ideally, you're supposed to do a full day fast if you can, and I think it goes into the next day as well. So it's not just a 24-hour fast. It's a 24 hours plus 12, 36-hour fast. So it goes 12 hours into the next day, or maybe some people like to go 6 hours into the next day. So you break your fast maybe about 12 o'clock in the afternoon. So the consensus or the reasoning behind this is, so you give, like I said to you, is to give the stomach a rest, especially with all the grains and all the hardcore food that we consume these days, and especially since now most foods that a large portion of people do consume are wrapped up in a label or wrapped in a wrapper and plastic and stuff. So it's just giving the body a rest. Now, from my experience, I started off with intermittent fasting indirectly. So when I was in high school, it goes back before that. It was when I was in primary school. I would have my breakfast. So, kids, what do kids eat? Cereal and toast, etc. And then I would go the whole day without consuming anything until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, half three when we finished school. And at one time, I remember, I got in trouble for it in school. My teacher pulled me to one side saying that, why are you starving yourself for the rest of the day? And they phoned up my parents. But it was just something that felt so instinctive. I just felt like through the daytime, I had no reason to consume anything because I didn't feel, first of all, I didn't want to waste time. I wanted to play outside as much as possible. We only got 20 minutes break at 10:30, and then at 12 o'clock, we got an hour for lunch. And I wanted to use that entire duration just to kind of play and to catch up with people. And I just felt like, eating something would end up taking like half an hour or something. So I completely got rid of that. Plus, carrying a packed lunch as well, it was just a pain in the arse. I was never a fan of it. So that carried on until when I went into college, and then it manifested into intermittent fasting. So I started to understand the science behind it and why we should we should only consume in short intervals. So it goes back to the caveman days. We didn't get to eat 6 meals a day, small little meals a day throughout the day. You only got to eat whenever you caught something. So these primitive humans were consuming maybe one meal in a week or one meal in 10 days. So they were going through that intermittent fasting protocol without even realizing it, unless they caught something or unless they had like berries. So their large meal would be obviously something that was meat based, and then the rest of the time they'll just be consuming berries or anything that they can forage. So it does really go back into the human evolution and how our ancestors were doing it. And if you look at the history of humans, 10,000 years old, isn't it? 15,000 years old, before the modern man was on Earth. It's only been about 5,000-6,000 years, and then before that it was all primitive human beings. So we are still, compared to the rest of evolution and the rest of the time, we are still programmed to consume in that way. I don't care what people say, but that's how it should be, and that's what our ancestors did. So the idea of going, I think it's the intermittent fasting protocol by science says at least 12 hours a day you want to be fasting, at least 12 hours, and you're supposed to bump it up to 16, maybe even 20-hour fasts. So when I first came across that, I went quite hardcore. I did like 20-hour fasts and only ate in a 4-hour window. Now, bear in mind, I was consuming 2,700 calories. So my base to maintain my weight was 2,500 calories, and I used to bump it up by 100 every week just to have small incremental increases. So I bumped it up to 2,700 calories, and I would have those 2,700 calories in a 4-hour window. So I would go the entire day of fasting, and I would also train fasted. So people say, when you're lifting heavy weight, you want to consume something. For 2 or 3 years straight, I never ate anything. So I was, deadlifting 150, 160 on a fasted state. So I had nothing in my belly. And I remember I used to have these conversations in the gym with people, and they'll just be like, you are absolute nut job. Like, how are you doing that shit? And I said, it's because the mind is distracted. If you are away from food, then you're not going to get hungry. If you are doing something, then you are not going to get hungry. You'll be invested in the activity, and especially these days when I'm climbing, we're literally climbing 6 hours, 5 to 6 hours a day, and I tend to bring as minimal food as possible. So once I've run out of that food, what do I eat? Nothing. I have to literally get through the day. So I think it's like what you said. It's going into the mental aspect of it. Once you get over that mental hurdle, which takes about a week or 2 weeks to get used to, then it becomes second nature. And I think we need to get into the habit of breaking that. And so this Ekadashi that happens every 11 days is to do that. It's to reset the body. It's to give you that time to almost, like you said, you felt your meditation in that period is always stronger than usually. And that's because you are now not affected by the thoughts of the food. When you consume food, especially foods that are high in taste, very passionate types of foods, what usually happens is the mind starts to linger on the food because the mind remembers the taste of the food. And that's one of the reasons why Hindus don't eat onion and garlic, because of the pungent taste and the actual the nature of the food itself. It stays in the back of your mind, and you almost become animal-like, and you're attached to food in that way. Whereas once you start introducing regular fasts, you break away from that mold, and you almost become more conscious about what's going on in your body and your mind.
Yeah, it's a really good point for the relationship with food and seeing how much it awakens the senses. And I thought about this morning when I was getting in the shower, and I just want to listen to some nice peaceful music and meditate, and it's like really made me think about how we relate to each other, and we think, oh, why doesn't this person live like this, or why don't they do that, why haven't they tried that? And it's like I couldn't explain how powerful the fast is to enhance my drive for spirituality, or to meditate, or to be still, unless you've experienced it. Like, you can't get it across. Like, what? So if you fast, you'll actually want to meditate. Like, yeah, more than likely because you very limitedly, you want to slow down at least. At the least, you'll just want to slow down, because the gross level, you don't have the physical energy to be up and running around and doing things on just a pure fast. There are fasts you can do where you do get energy in, and the lemon detox was great for that. But generally, just speaking rule of thumb, you fast, you're going to go quieter. And a big aspect is the excitement through certain foods. And, you know, because I'll sit down and me and Abs watch a movie or something. It's like last night we were going to watch a film, and we were, you know, but I was like, you know what, I'd rather just watch this film tomorrow when we'll make some Japanese or Mexican or something. And I want to enjoy the film while we eat a little bit. I didn't want to do it then because I saw the pull, you know, you sit down, the TV's on or whatever you're doing, and it's like, oh, normally I eat at this point and this time. And then you just feel the hooks of the body and the senses going, this plus this means you should be doing that. When you separate one thing, like, you know, again, something I'm good at is having a focused mind. So I'll be like, well, no, I'm not eating. I don't want to watch TV with it. Let's watch what happens inside and see that there's a dissembling of, or a conflict that goes, when you eat food, you should watch this. And it's like, how often are we doing that? Not just with food, but in the people we speak to, how we speak to them, the actions we take through the day. And it's not just wishy-washy talk when we're saying things like cultivate a spiritual lifestyle, be around right people that will elevate you and pick you up, or eat clean foods and good foods. The entry point is physical for most of us. How does my body look? How am I performing in the gym? But really, I think if we chose to go further and past it and to see, do I really want to live a conscious lifestyle or a spiritual lifestyle? Do I want to take my meditation and my awareness of myself seriously? Because if you want to take awareness of yourself and you really want to look at your emotions, I would strongly recommend do a fast. Try a fast. You know, do your research, of course. Take a look into it and check out any medical advice or backgrounds for yourself personally. But everyone's capable of a fast, even if you start at intermittent fasting. Get your foot in the door, but know if you're only going to do a day, which is great, and I applaud that. If you're starting, great, well done. But no, I'd say go for a minimum of 3 days to begin, because I think it's within 72 hours is where you actually, 48 hours I think is when the actual effects of a fast kick in. You want 2 days at least to experiment to see. But it's phenomenal what it does for you. And yeah, man, Abs is really getting into a Ayurveda at the minute, and they say no onions, no garlic. And for that reasons, you know, we all have specific types with our body. It's what is it? Pitta, Kapha. And I can't remember the third one. Yeah, Vata, is it?
Yeah,
Pitta,
I think
Kapha,
so.
Vata. And you know, they're in correlation with the energies we have in the body. So fire, earth, or wind.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating, man. These books are legitimate books, really good. You know, and I'm seeing the qualities and not really being conditioned to, I want to be this or I want to be that. I'm not really asked. I just want to see what way of food he recommends. And they nail your psychological aspects and personality traits on the head based off what foods that you're eating. And changing to things like you say with the fiery foods. They're great. You know, they're a medicine. They help detoxify. But garlic is a very potent medicine, which should be used for medicinal properties. And same with onions, not something we bang in every day. I mean, Abs, being a great cook she is, and her whole life she uses them. She uses onions and garlic all the time because of the taste. And it's great actually to watch, because her getting into that, she's cut it out instantly because her belief and her trust and desire to explore the system of Ayurveda through food. It's like me with a fast. It's not even a thought, right? That's gone. I've cut it out just to see what comes about it, because they do stimulate these certain psychological responses. Now, the big issue is that they're trying to wedge the common person away from understanding that food is not for taste. Like, it's not for entertainment, which we use it for. That's my link to I want to watch this film and I'm going to eat that meal tonight, which I am going to do. But I know it's for entertainment and it's for enjoyment. It's not to ride that and get stuck and lost in it. You know what I mean? Which we're doing every day. Oh, I like this and I like that and I have that. But what if we had that experience of knowing our psychological state and our emotions are actually being pushed one way or the other by what we're consuming? I think we would really start to consider, maybe I shouldn't be eating that food all the time just because it's nice or because I like it. And a fast will bring that to us. A fast will say, stop. Give yourself a committed 3 days and look at what occurs within you. Look at how you feel. Look how your relationship changes with food. Like I've said before to, I don't know on a podcast or not, but when I did the 7-day water fast, and I was coming out of it, and I went to Tesco to buy my food. You know, you break it with soups or smoothies first, and then every day you introduce another meal, that's soft foods. And I was in Tesco and I was like, I wanted pickles. Never had them in my life. I always used to, you know, years ago being a nipper and a teenager, I'd always avoid that gherkin on the McDonald's burgers, and then it was never my thing. After the fast, it was like, I want gherkin. I saw them and I was like, yes. My body wanted it. I didn't know why. I just thought, and I loved them. I couldn't stop eating them because of the value that brought in, and the intuition is aware of it. You can hear the subtleties of your body, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, so much more. But it requires that want to go, I'm going to try it for a fast. And, you know, we talk about a lot of things and a lot of ways to get ourselves to a certain level. And I would 100% recommend the fast for people to go in if you want to know yourself, if you want to see your conditioning and your strong desires and attachments to the world outside, to food.
Yeah, completely. So I just want to touch on the point where you said, obviously with fasting, it allows you to still the mind. Now, they say when you have a cold or a flu or something, fasting is a great way of driving that out, because you are starving the body, and you're focusing on the energy or for the immune system to work on terminating the virus. So and it goes into I remember when I broke up with my first girlfriend. Well, she broke up with me. I think I told myself a month. I'll give myself a month to get over it. You know, a month is a good amount of time. But I got over it within like 3 or 4 days, to the point where I can move on with my life. And the reason why I was able to do that, looking back now in self-reflection, is I spent those 3 days barely eating anything. And I get it, like when in times of, you know, when you experience trauma, the first thing that tends to go, well, there's two things that tend to go. The first one is your hunger drive, and secondly, your sexual drive. Those two things disappear, because in those situations, you think about it, evolutionarily speaking, you don't need those. In times of trauma where your body needs to recover, those two things are not things that you need. And what do people do in those two scenarios? They either indulge in sex or they indulge in food. So the weight goes up in that period of time because you are feeling sorry for yourself. And that's the culture we live in these days. We've almost been pushed that message that, oh, if something bad happens to you, let's distract ourselves. And it comes back to society pushing an agenda of multitasking. And don't get me wrong, you know, the mind, and Sadhguru talks about it, the human mind is capable of taking on multiple things at the same time. You know, we're able to do multiple things. Like right now, you're talking to me, you're breathing, you're drinking something. We're able to do that. But it goes back to what you said about watching a movie and requiring to eat. It's almost programmed. It's become autonomous because you relate movies to eating. Whereas if you focus on single tasking or unitasking, just focusing on one thing at a time, the process itself becomes meditative. Even eating, the process of mastication. I was talking to a climbing friend of mine about this, where we were sat outside after climbing for like 3 hours, and we had our lunch break. And I remember thinking, when you're sat there and you don't have something to read or something to watch, you're sat there, you're focusing on the taste of what the food you're consuming, and you're also focusing on the process of what your thoughts are going through as well. It becomes such a meditative process, and that's something that we eliminate when we associate food with watching something or reading something. And that's when, look, I have this issue where I end up like biting my gum because I'm not focusing on the process of eating. I'm focusing on distracting myself with watching something. So I remember at times when I'm focusing on one thing at a time is the time where I'm fully aware of what's going on, plus I don't end up chewing my gum off. So I think that's a huge thing that we need to practice. And I get it, like multitasking is a great thing, like I said, but there is a place for unitasking or single tasking, just focusing on that one thing.
Yeah, very well said, mate. A few points there that I'd like to go in is one, what you said about the indulgence of food and sex. So I'll come back to that. If I forget, just remind me.
Yeah.
And then what you were just saying there about eating the food. In my Kundalini yoga teacher training, there's one of the elements where it was just about food and our relation. So one of the practices we had to do for the training is prepare a meal that you can eat with your hands. And it was beautiful because what we did is, first it's Yogi Bhajan's teaching, so they've kept it authentic. It's like yogas and teachers, it all kind of gets skewered along the way, and they're doing everything. They're not, not editing anything, like Theravada Buddhism, where they just will not change anything whatsoever, which has its pros and cons, like any tradition does. Some need to be updated. Some things need to stay purely the same, and I am a bit of a purist. I like things like Hatha Yoga. I just like original teachings and nothing's been skewered. Again, there's pros and cons. Anyway, this teaching is you say a little prayer before your food, a prayer in the sense of connecting with what you're about to eat. You know, you send gratitude and compassion to this element of food that you're eating. You do a little empowerment, touching your shoulders and your knees. And, you know, I like ritual. I enjoy that stuff for whether or not it has benefit for people. For me, it helps me connect and get into what I'm doing. And then you use your hands to like eat the food. And it was like a salad I had, chickpeas and, Ayurvedic kind of foods. And it was, just sat there eating. And you chew it 21 times. So everything you chew 21 times. To they really focus on the dissolution of the food in the mouth. And Sadhguru, he mentions this too in his talks. And when I did the Sadhguru the Kriyas with them over the 3 days, that's all we did for lunch. It was sit and you chew it like this and specific foods, because it's the saliva in your mouth is actually what's breaking down the food. So you chew 21 times, or essentially till there's nothing left to swallow. I wish I had the quote, but there's a quote that they're basically talking about if you don't chew it enough, you're actually putting poison into the body in a sense. You want to chew it all in the mouth so it's nothing, which helps the whole digestive process. Digestion starts in the mouth, not in the belly. And I was like, yes, I like that a lot. And to see the actual struggle I'd have is like, I'm chewing, oh, there's taste, God, I just want to swallow that. Or you want to chew 3 times, 4 times. But like meditation or any practice, when we give in to the process itself, when we stop and go, this is what I'm doing, so I'll give it the full effort, it's just, it takes you somewhere else. It really does. We really develop different qualities. And to bring that into life, imagine if it was a normal thing where we would write, it's a mealtime, let's give this some effort and some energy and a focus on that. And on the course, the lady is suggesting, imagine having a yogi dinner party where you sit and everybody brings something to eat. You use your hands to connect because the energy from your hands going into the food, you're bringing that to the mouth, you're chewing it all that time, you're not talking, you're just sat there and you're being with your food. And when lockdown's over, man, I think it's something would be great for me and you to do, we'll have a little yoga lunchtime once a week or something, just helping start that practice, because it's not something that I'll be committed to for every meal. I know that, being a realist, but it's something like fasting. Once a month, I'm going to do a Sunday, something I've wanted to do. And this has rebooted me. Once a month, every Sunday, I would just do a fast. Maybe if I can increase that to every Sunday, that'd be wonderful. But at least once a month on a Sunday, just do a full fast. And then at least twice a week, do a lunchtime meal with my hands and spend that time with the chewing and increasing it, because it does transform these traits and these abilities. We talk often about how we change ourselves, and we know it's by gradually going into something. But do something. If you're interested and you've got the effort to do it, do something so far out like this. Like maybe we could get a few of us together and we could all have a meal once a week where we go out and we just have a yogic meal and we chew and we sit and then we reflect afterwards. Like, it's installing these methods of doing it, isn't it? And having the support system to go for it and creating a community for it, because it's so easy to fall on your own. But suppose it's easier for ourselves. You have your Hindu background, and you have my interest in Eastern philosophies and spirituality, to go, right, I'll give that a go. And once you've felt it, once you know it, and you've been through the hardships that people who are so unfamiliar with it, once you've got through the growing pains, it's indisputable, at least to see your connections and pulls. Like, the very least is, why do I want to chew it quicker? Why do I struggle in a fast? Why do I really want that food that's actually not good for me? And know there's a massive craving for it. Just before I go into your other point, is there anything you want to add towards that?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that triggered something in my head. So the reason, have you ever wondered why your mother's food always tastes better than food that you get from outside? Why?
Straight up love, brother. Straight up love.
And I don't think people understand that concept. Like you said, when you pray to the food or when you chant mantras, that's where it is. It's purifying the food. And in the olden days, when chefs made the food, when your mother makes the food, she will generally give her love to the food, and that's why it tastes so great. In the the Hindu tradition, the mother would chant mantras while she's making the food, or the chef will chant mantras, and then that gives love to the food that you are just about to consume. And the second point is this idea of using cutlery. Now, my friends know, and they'll tell you all about it. I can't use cutlery. I'm so bad. And it's so funny to watch me do it. And I would, for a period of time, I was quite embarrassed by it. And then I just thought, screw it. This is just who I am. I like to use my hands. It's that tactile response that you get from the food. And then when you place it in your mouth, it's something that, again, it's very primitive. It's something that early humans were doing, and the whole of the East, they don't use any cutlery. Maybe the Chinese tradition is using chopsticks, etc. Apart from that, the tradition is not to use anything apart from your hands. Just push record again. And I think we've got into a habit of separating ourselves from the food that we're consuming, separating ourselves from nature, and that's what this object. So if you want to go into the philosophy of it, this steel object or this metal object that we use as cutlery, a knife or a fork, does that. It separates you from the thing that you are just about to ingest. And I think Sadhguru talks about, we have this amazing autonomous ability to transform that food into you. Why does that food not transform into, like, when I consume that food, why doesn't that food turn into Craig? Or why does it not turn into a dog? Or why does it not turn into an animal? It doesn't, because it manifests whatever that's happening in my body. My body knows that that food needs to somehow turn into me. It becomes a part of me. So when you consume a mango, that mango, you digest it, you break it down, and then it gives the nutrition to the body, and then that becomes you. It becomes a part of your body and your anatomy, or your biology. And I think we've lost that tradition. Maybe it's because we overthink everything these days as well. And the final thing I want to touch on before we move on to the indulgence thing is the seating position. The way you sit has a huge effect on how you're going to digest that food, and that comes back to that 21 times you chew the food. I think. From what we were taught as kids growing up, the reason why you break it down 21 times is so then it becomes liquid in your mouth. It becomes almost liquid. So when you swallow it, you're not taking in those large chunks of or pieces of food. So when we do this, it allows our acid regulation in our stomach to stay constant. Obviously it fluctuates through the daytime depending on the position of the sun, depending on when we're consuming food, etc., how much food we're consuming, the types of food. But generally speaking, we should have a pretty balanced level of acid production in our stomach. The problem why it fluctuates so much, the problem why people suffer acidity is because of that. You consume foods, first of all, that are harder for the digestive system to break down. So we call them, complex carbs. Foods that are harder to break down, like for example, what's a complex carb? Potato, etc. We want to try and go as simple as possible. So anything that goes into the body and comes out is better for you than things that linger inside of your stomach and linger inside of your intestines. So that's why foods are categorized into three categories in Ayurveda. We have sattvic foods, which come from directly from the earth, fruits, vegetables, etc. Very light sort of foods. Then we have the tamasic foods, which, oh God, I've just pushed a button on my screen. Here we go. So we have the the rajasic food, which are foods with passion. So the sattvic foods are the foods with love and purity. So they come naturally. Oh, I'm having an issue, sorry, mate. Come on, stand.
The tamasic foods then being more the fiery ones, like the peppers, the cayennes, chilies.
Yeah, basically. So the tamasic foods are the ones you want to try and avoid.
Right.
The ones the passionate ones, rajasic foods are, if you think about passion fruit, it only has a smaller quantity of juice inside of it, but it's extremely tangy and extremely sour.
Funny you say that. I bought a load from Mark Spencer because I love them, and they're just there's something special about them. We're not to distract from the topic here, but again, pulled to them, and it's like there's something special about them. There's so little of it in such a big case, but it's like it's like having an elixir in a movie or something. It's like you've got this little bit here, but you drink it and it's like, this is a special, this is something to be looked after. Maybe not consumed all the time, but there's something special about how magical that substance is.
Yeah, and it's interesting how when you finish it, you think, God, I need more now. But passion fruits are quite interesting because you'll go through, if you consume a large amount of passion fruits a day, within the week, I guarantee it, within the week, you will get sick of it. So my father owns a Indian grocery store, so he gets fruits from across the world. When we used to bring the box of passion fruits at home, my sisters and I would consume it within like a day. Like all the passion fruits would be gone. We consume like 10 a day, and then within like 10 days, within like 2 or 3 days, you are absolutely sick of them. Why? Because the food is extremely extreme in taste, if you want to call it. So very passionate in taste, so rajasic. And the final foods that we're talking about, the tamasic ones, meat comes into that category. Onion and garlic come into that category. Anything that has a narcotic effect on the body and the mind goes into the tamasic category, and it affects the way you think, the way you breathe, the way you look at the world. So this is where, foods like, again, meat, fish, eggs, foods that come from a direct animal source, like not milk, because milk is, traditionally speaking, milk does not harm the cow. Milk it comes from the udder, it feeds the calf, but also it's good, it's nutritious for human beings as well. Like, we've been drinking it for thousands of years. So milk is not an issue. It's when we have this commercial milk that hurts the cow. So imagine this is a really good analogy. Imagine you put your mother in chains and you ask her to cook food for the rest of your life. You only keep her in the kitchen in a small little area where she cooks food, and that's all she does. What do you think is going to happen to the food that you consume?
The quality of it will just diminish.
Yeah.
And in fact, not diminish, but it will have a negative effect.
Yeah, so that's exactly what we're doing with cows. So that's why the Hindus consider cows your second mothers almost, because they've brought you up. If people that are fortunate to be breastfed from their own mothers, that's great. But then at the same time, your mother will not be able to breastfeed you all the time. You will also consume the milk from a cow, and that again, that mother or that cow becomes your second mother. And that's something that's lost in today's tradition, where we drink commercial milk, and even if it's milk that's been milked the normal traditional way and it doesn't hurt the cow, we don't meet the cow. We never ever meet the person or the animal the food comes from. That's the other problem. That's why we're so disconnected from nature. It comes back to the cutlery analogy, where we are separating ourselves from the food itself. We're also separating ourselves from the sort of the part of nature where the food comes from.
Yeah, that's vital. That's very important to being a part of it, because you're in the chain then. I think that really highlights the separation we have in society, is because we're in the entertainment age and the information age. It's like whatever we want instantly. We'll get it however means. Like it's real and a level of disengagement and unconsciousness that all we want is the product. We don't care how, and we don't even care what it does, essentially. Like what you're saying about milk, if that person's in chains, it's a really good analogy. If that mother or that cow is in chains, we lose the quality of what is actually in the product, especially through milk, again, what they pump into the animal, into the cows, and how it comes to us. It's like, all we want is to be full. We don't care about the nutrients, we don't care. I mean, look at the massive thing. I think it's on the way out now, and maybe it has been for a while, but the whole thing about protein. Yeah, get your protein in. Make sure you take your protein powders. Waste of milk is what it was. It was the byproduct of milk wastage. Get it into a powder form. Cost companies 5p. They'll sell it to you for 45 quid a tub. And it's like, we don't care. All we want is that it says protein. We want the thing. We don't care about the quality of nutrients,
yes,
or if it's alive or not, like enzymes. And it's the arrogance and the ignorance of the generations that we're in. Because you will benefit so much more if you're eating organic, and less because it's nutrient dense. You'll benefit so much more if it's coming from a high quality source. But I think it takes a level of awareness, or to have this brought to your attention, and to actually experiment and see, do you feel different with these products or not? And we definitely will, but it's got to be something done for a time, because if we're on a level of denseness anyway, it takes us the time to recognize that you can feel different, and these things do have a sort of approach.
And just to add to that, going back to your fast, the only way you will fully reset the body and feel what's going on is to fast. Because if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, it becomes second nature for you. But then as soon as you have that break in between, like you said, 48 hours to 72 hours fast, then you can consume that product again, and then start to understand, is it benefiting me? What's the response in my body?
Yeah. And going into the food types that you were saying, I have my little concoction every morning, which is lemon, cayenne pepper, turmeric, black pepper, because that helps absorb the turmeric, and ginger. And looking at them, the kind of quality foods they're in, I'm taking the cayenne pepper out now, even though it's useful, it's very good for purifying the body and cleansing the organs and removing toxins because it's fiery. My general type is more pitta, which I'm more fiery based. I'm more energy, get things done. Which actually, I don't need more foods of that. I need to slow that down, and I've noticed that and reflected on that recently. And it's like tying more into the food is like, let's get that out of the way so I can be more settled and balanced. Now, what I thought was good, and it is good, but it's only good at the right time. It's like you can't take medicine all the time if you're not ill. Because it won't be doing its job, and it can actually cause, it can stop your body functioning the right way. So all these foods what were the types again? Sattvic,
Rajasic, and Tamasic.
Rajasic and Tamasic. So when we say one foods are good or bad, like the Tamasic, which was more, did you say like the meat and heavily based? Now for us, it's not useful, but for somebody else, it will be. And it's like with the balance of these factors, the more you know yourself and you see what foods are responding where, again, the Rajasic qualities of the fire, that'd be good for somebody who's got inertia and they're slow and they can't go up, right, get some of this down, yeah? Because that fire will start to cleanse out and wake you up. But I'm already naturally there anyway, so I need to slow that down because it's going too high. And this, again, the beauty of life, everyone's truth is individual, but how aware are you of yourself and where you are and what do we, because I could easily keep saying, no, it's good for me because it cleans my body out, so I'm going to keep taking it. On other levels, it's not, and it isn't, so I need to reduce that. But we have to be willing to reflect on where we're at and what we're actually doing with our life, where are our conflicts, where are our issues, what's our energy output, are we struggling with meditation, have I got too much energy, have I not got enough? And put it into the spectrum, which is why Ayurveda is phenomenal. And going into what you're saying about tools, I've had this for a few years. Copper drinking vessel. Put the water in that overnight, leave it for 8 hours so the copper gets absorbed into the water, and you drink it, and you get the taste is different, the quality is different, it's cleansed. And I've got a copper tongue scraper.
Oh yeah, I was just going to go talk about that. Yeah.
It takes 75 minutes. Copper's the only material. It takes 75 minutes for it to cleanse itself. So it's cleansing the water and it's cleaning itself. And the tongue scraper, which you're pulling out all your toxins lodged in the back of the throat,
when you're
being pulled out to cleanse the sleep, and then in the morning. And the product itself cleanses itself. Like plastics, again, you see the disconnection of our current society. Plastic bowls, plastic knife and fork, or there's different properties in metals which are good to use, but it's like these things that people may turn their head at and not even give a thought. Subtle, but very, very powerful in consistent use and awareness.
Yeah, so let's talk about those things then. But let me just mention that I'm also Pitta as well. So you have more fire in you. Now, this is weird, and again, I don't know what I can put it down to, but it's always been quite intuitive of me to not consume foods that are too hot. That's why I hate hot drinks. So, my friends all know that when I'm usually out and someone says to me, oh, do you want to get a tea or a coffee? I'm just like, no, I'm not really looking for a hot drink. And it's because people that are high in fire need to make sure they're consuming foods. That's why I love ice cream, because ice cream cools the body more. So anything that's got water, that's got ice and coldness to it, I pretty much love it. And that's why it's the nature of people that are fiery. You need to cool it down. It's getting back to that equipoise, the equanimity or the balancing of nature in your body. And I think we don't realize that because people tell us that, first thing in the morning, coffee or tea, and then people end up consuming that throughout the day when they're at work. And again, it comes back to what we were saying before where, you relate work to coffee or tea. And the second point I want to mention is, going into the copper and the tongue scraper, again, we've been using it since we were kids, but I didn't realize. So I was quite ignorant then. I thought all Hindus or all Indians used it. So when I was growing up, and I used to ask my Hindu friends, the people that weren't from the sector of the sector of Hinduism that I'm from, they didn't use it. So when I was introducing it to people, and or when I was on a road trip in America, and one of my friends, Chris, that was with me, he was like, "What the hell is this thing that you're gagging on?" And I was like, "Oh, it scrapes all the bacteria off your tongue. So when you're sleeping, or what happens is the bacteria that it comes back to the foods you're consuming, sits on your tongue, and every morning if you swallow that, then you're just putting all the bacteria into your body. So all the harmful bacteria that you had from the foods you've consumed, that's going into your body. So what the body does as a natural defense is every morning you will feel the back of your throat. You'll feel like there's a buildup of saliva, and you need to spit it out. So that tongue scraper, if you use it properly, removes that bacteria. And you've probably noticed this. Once you use that tongue scraper, you can never go back to not using that tongue scraper, because it feels really unusual every morning to wake up and not have that feeling. And I remember in America, we were in the Grand Canyon, and we weren't planning on staying the night, but we ended up staying the night. But the next day I ended up fasting the whole journey back up without any food or without any water as well, because I knew that, and it was a tradition that you would not. My friend and I have the same sort of philosophy in that regard. So he's also from the same community of Hindus. So it's not just about me; it's also other people saying the same thing. So we would not participate in our daily chores unless we showered, we scraped our tongue, and we brushed our teeth. And that was really essential for us to. It's our daily ritual, and then we will start our day. If those things don't happen, then the day doesn't start, and you have this sense of lethargy. You don't feel as sort of driven, or you don't have that impulse to get things done, because you haven't started off well. If you don't start your daily meditation practice, you feel like there's something that's missing from your life, and it's something that, again, we've never come across it, because a lot of people that haven't come across it think, what the hell are you doing? Or we get into a situation where we become very ignorant of it and say, why the hell do I want to shove this thing in the back of my throat? And now science is catching up on, because you're getting toothpaste companies and toothbrush companies that are now releasing this tongue scraper, but it's made out of plastic again. So what are we doing to ourselves?
Yeah, doing it is like, I've noticed the freshness in breath too. So in the morning, obviously people have funky breath.
Yeah.
But the quality of it has changed. It's still, obviously you clean your teeth, but it's like, it's nowhere near as pungent as it was before I started scraping my tongue. And and the gagging too, because the gagging brings the mucus up, doesn't it? Which the mucus that's sitting there, it's not like, people might think that sounds a bit off, but it's part of the process. And your perspective is included if you study and you research these things, or you talk to people who know it, like yourself. It's like, well, the gagging is actually not a bad thing, because you're squeezing out the mucus that is sitting there. It's not like you're making yourself sick or anything of a detrimental effect. And you don't even have to push it that far to do the gagging. You just scrape the back of the tongue and pull it forward. But yeah, it's something that I'll always be doing it from this point on. And now it's a part of my life, because it's just the freshness in there, removing the bacteria. I've got myself, as my hair is just growing out in lockdown, I'm getting the lockdown throw like everyone. I've got just bought a wooden comb. Because the Ayurveda, they prescribe using the wooden comb. Can't remember how many times to brush. I'll check that through. But, just getting on with that. It's like these processes of not through vanity, but through purification of yourself, purification of the vessel. Because whatever we want to accomplish in our life, we have to look at, or how we want to live. How is your home, in the sense of how is your body? Are you showering twice a day? Do you shower in the morning? Do you shower before bed? Are you cleaning your teeth twice a day? Do you meditate? Do you exercise? Do you eat clean? Just the bases that we should, I feel, are very beneficial to a positive, standard, enjoyable way of living. Just by the basis, if you look after your vessel in those ways, give it 3 weeks, and you'll feel different, and you'll look at things different, and your demeanor will change without doing anything else. Just check the basics first of good hygiene and cleanliness, and it's a great stationary base. It's a very good start.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about that then, the showering process as well, and the comb. So I switched, when I started growing my hair out back in 2016, I immediately switched to a wooden comb because I started reading about the benefits of using a wooden comb. And one of the benefits, or the disadvantage of using a plastic comb, is we know from rubbing balloons on your head that plastic creates static. So static build up in the body. So the wooden comb eliminates that. So you don't charge the brain. You don't overstimulate the brain with a static increase. And now, secondly, we produce natural oils in the body. So, we have this, and I've always had this issue with the whole cosmetics industry. We're all about the exterior. If you have pimples on your face or if you have spots, there's something happening in the inside that's causing that. The pimples are, so the body has two main excretion systems. One is obviously the holes that we have. We have the anus, and we have the obviously we have urinate as well. The two main holes that are supposed to get rid of obviously 90% of all the, maybe even 98% of your excretions. If that isn't happening, where's the second place the excretion happens? Through the sweat glands. So the sweat glands open up and you start to exert your excretions to there. And then from that, you end up having clogged up oils in your face and the oily parts of your body. And that's where you get spots. And you also get odors. Odors become trapped when they come out through the skin. They need to come out through the main exit. But when they come out the skin, that's when you have a buildup of odors. And that's when you tend to get, people that have really strong body odor, etc. It's because it goes back to the food you're consuming and you are not flushing the toxins out. It comes back to everything we've just mentioned previously. The bacteria that builds up in the back of the throat, we're not getting rid of that. The foods that we're consuming are either rajasic or tamasic in nature, so they're building up. Again, like I said about the onion and garlic analogy, that onion and garlic, one slice of it, that stays inside of you. I can taste a slice. So I always give this analogy to my friends, and the friends that are quite new, they end up, thinking that I'm probably weird or something, but they start to understand it more the more I tell them about it. So if you cut a slice of garlic or onion, and then with that same knife, you end up slicing 20 to 30 breads or 40 breads, I can still taste that tiny drop of garlic onion on that bread. Even if it's the 30th slice of bread that's been cut or the 100th slice of bread, that taste is so pungent, or the smell of it is so pungent that it stays on the knife and it stays in the bread. So imagine what it's doing to your body. So if you are having smelly feet and you're having issues, that's one of the reasons. It's because of the food you're consuming, and again, you're not drinking enough water to flush it out, and you're not using, the tongue scrapers. Again, it's all comes back into one whole thing. And Ayurveda talks about this, and it's traditions that have been going on for 5,000 years. You're going against 5,000 years of traditions, and now science is catching them up on it, and now it's trying to patent it and saying, oh, we figured this out. But the cosmetic industry has cashed in on that insecurity where, you see a pimple that pops up on your face. Ayurveda tells you that if you have any spots on your forehead, this is the one thing I remember, if you have spots on your forehead, it's an indication that you are consuming foods that are tamasic or rajasic, and you're consuming it very late at night. So your digestive system is not breaking it down, or you're not drinking enough water to flush it out. So that's why you get spots on your forehead. If you eat quite late and then you go to sleep, it means that, the toxins are coming out through your forehead, and then you have each part of your body, your nose, your cheeks, etc., has a different reason what the toxins are doing in the body and how they are coming out. So again, it's something that people need to invest time in. So if you're getting spots, stop buying products that irritate the skin more so the body produces more oils. Start focusing on what you are consuming that's causing those issues. I know that coffee, for me, chocolate, if I have large amount of chocolate, I tend to get spots. So I completely eliminate chocolate and keep it to a minimal. So pay attention to that. And it comes back to fasting. Fast and then try that thing again. And then you'll have the response from that consuming of that product. And then you can decide what you want to do in regards to whether it's beneficial to you or harmful to you.
Yeah, 100%, man. I think looking at the products that we're using going into the cosmetics, the industry there is like, it's always to overlap. The actual issue is like, oh, you've got spots, right, we'll use this face wash then. It's like, well, that's a chemical going on the body, which may help something on the cosmetic issue, but it will just apply more ignorance for the person because they're not changing what they're eating or what's blocked up in the body, because that's the real root. It's not, okay, I've got this spot here, I need a face cream. It's like, why was the spot caused?
Exactly.
It's nutritional. It's the outlook of food is not food. How we associate food, let's scrub that out. Food is medicine, 100%. It was Socrates or Plato who said food is medicine. It's not for the senses. As great as that is, it's just so easy to ride that magic carpet into entertainment, into pleasure, into senses. I love this food, bang, 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 right? well, I'm just going to keep eating it. But every drop of food, every morsel of food is medicine. What are we eating? How much of it? And is it mindless? And when we go into the cosmetic side of things, like, oh, I'm going to get this because it helps my face, or these creams help my wrinkles or whatever. Let's look at what the blocking is. I mean, showering, the shower gel that we use, if you just look at what's in the ingredients, and that rule of thumb is if you can't pronounce it, don't use it, because the body is absorbing everything. Like the skin's also a barrier, but it's also absorbent. I've been using iodine recently, and like a Petri, the little squeezy things.
Yeah.
And I'll put a little bit on my wrist to absorb it. And I'll see the stain that will come on my skin, and then the wateriness goes because the skin it's absorbing the iodine. And it's like that's happening with the chemicals. The showers that we're using, I use a soap from the local organic market, which is nice and natural. If we're using deodorants, they're blocking the orifices, they're blocking the holes that stop the smell. They smell nice because they're perfumed, and it's a fake scent, it's a fake smell. And while when we block it, we're also causing more block, which creates more smell. And it's like, if you smell, if there's a body odor problem, don't look at masking it with the perfumes and the shower gels. Still be very hygienic, but find the right ways to do it. Look at where the smell's coming from. And I always remember once I had a takeaway, a curry, and I went, it was lovely, but it wasn't a good clean one. The next day I went to hot yoga, and the smell coming out of me, mate, it's terrible. I was like, I hope bloody no one's near me can smell this, because everything I was eating, from the spices and then the food, it was just coming out of the body because I was in the high temperature and doing exercise. That's one example. We're doing that every day, all the time. Whatever we're eating, the scent will be coming out of us. It's why some people naturally smell nice. Not only is their demeanor nice, and their psychology and emotional state is very generally good and calm and good, they will smell nice, and it will come from them. Babies are your golden example. Smell a baby's head, smells incredible. Babies smell beautiful. You're calm around babies. You love babies. You want to hug them. Why is that? It's not just, oh, that's a baby. It's think about what it is. Why the hell's a baby smelling good? Just because it's so natural and so pure and in that pure state. So when we're not smelling good, or we've got bad skin, there are signals for us. And it's just unfortunate that now, because of how everything's image-based in this world, and again, we talk about it so frequently, but the social media and the conditioning of where we're being driven down is like, I have to look good, so I will do whatever I have to look good, to feel good, even though it's not. It's like, if we're not looking good or we're smelling, it's coming from us and what we're doing to our body, not dependent on the external world of cosmetics to hinder that. Like, I find it really sad when, people are cosmetically enhancing their body, or the lips done, or the eye thing, or the cheeks and the smile, and it's like some beautiful girls that I know have done it, and it's like it changes it. It's like you were beautifully natural, and then for whatever reason we felt I'm more acceptable if I get this work done, or I change my eyes. Like, let's get on board with the aging process and accept it, rather than see it as a negative thing and the way we see beauty, because all that is a perspective that's driven us to be against nature. No, you shouldn't be looking old, or no, you shouldn't be getting on, or you as a guy, my hairline's getting further back as I get older. Right, well, it's nature, so how can I get online with that and feel comfortable with what goes on with getting older? Like, that's what life does. Appreciate and love that process, rather than find, oh, that's happening, I better get my eyes injected, or get something done to my hair, or whatever. Like, we're fighting ourselves, and how silly is that, to be fighting ourselves to look for the cosmetic advantage, to push nature away. And where does that end? I think that can bring us into the topics of transhumanism and working with cybernetics and trying to live forever in that sense, when if we get on board with the more connected natural and spiritual teachings, we will find we don't even have to have that battle, because we understand and we love the process of life. We don't resist it, we don't fight it, we don't try and alter it from false means.
Yeah, definitely. So again, you've mentioned a few things there, and we went into the cosmetic part, especially. So I got approached when I was in America. I got approached by this company there, and obviously I had long hair then as well, and they were like, "It's amazing how thick your hair is, and it's just so naturally silky. And like, what do you put in your hair? Like, what products do you use?" I'm like, "Do you know, the funny thing is, I don't use anything. The same as my skin. I had a client who was a movie actress, a Pakistani movie actress, and she said to me, 'It's incredible how clear your skin is.' And I said, 'Look, the only thing I use is water. That's the secret. Take care of the inside. So make sure the foods you're consuming, if they're causing negative effects on you, manage that, and everything else will take care of itself. I don't use soap. Like, I've not used soap in terms of body scrubs and stuff. I haven't used it in God knows 3 or 4 years now. And I don't feel like I need to. Like a normal shower, and that's all I need. And I don't smell at all day. And that's because you are taking care of the body and what's going on in the inside. And I know it's a cliche these days, with the amount of people posting about focusing on the inside, either mental or even physical as well. But it's something that needs to be, said many a time until people start to understand that really focus on the inside, whether it's mental or even physical. Like the biology of the body will take care of itself as long as you take care of that. Don't worry about the symptoms, worry about the root cause, what's causing those problems. And I think in a society where, again, we're being exploited. We're 100% being exploited by these companies. Now, the company that I got approached by in America were like, well, we can't really use you. We want you to sell our product, but you don't use anything. And I'm like, yeah, and that's who I am. I'm never going to sell that out. I'm not going to be like, okay, my hair's like this because I use this product, because it's not true. My hair's not like that. The only thing I use in my hair actually is apple cider vinegar. I dilute that in water. And again, this is not an encouragement for other people to do it, because like you said, the way it reacts with my body is positive. So for some people that are different in nature, it might react negatively, and you might start having negative reactions to it. So just because it works for one person doesn't mean that it'll work for 100 other people. And we need to get into that mindset of working on individuals, not on a collective. And it's the concept of, if I give you an orange and I give you vitamin C, which one are you more likely to consume? You're going to consume the orange, because you're not just going for the nutrition, you're not just going for the vitamin C, you're going for the other parts of nutrition that comes in the orange. So the taste, the way the sort of the hormones that are inside of the orange, relate with your body and interact with your body, those kind of things, you don't get that benefit from a tablet. And it's like the thing you were talking about with the isolation of protein from whey. The whey was a byproduct of milk. And it was a way for companies to get rid of it. What do we do with this waste product? Well, they dump it in proteins, slap a label on it, and charge at least 1,000% on the original, how much it cost them to make it. And it's because we're obsessed with isolating what we need. Oh, we need protein. That's all we need. We don't care about all of the other benefits that you get from the milk. We just care about one actual component to it, which is just protein. And we need to start getting out of that habit. Get out of that habit of focusing on one thing. Okay, if you need vitamin C because your body's lacking it, yes, maybe you need to take a supplement, but don't be obsessed with that supplement. And that's what usually happens. We end up poisoning our body by overindulgence, and it goes perfectly into what you wanted to talk about as our second topic, which is indulgence, of whether sex or through foods.
Yeah, bringing it back to that. Very good loop there, man. I like how you recalled that. Just on top of supplements, actually, before we jump off that, I've recently just bought this, which is omega-3, EPA and DHA. Like, I just feel my memory's recently not been as sharp as it used to be. And I thought, okay, so what foods am I not consuming? It's like, it came to me that the memory supplements, because they're the first ones in, I was researching them, like, I have chia seeds, but not enough. So I bought a supplement. It's plant-based, so it's just fully plant-based, like from the algae, not from fish, so it's a vegan supplement. And the company's really, really ethical, Opti-free, they're called. Because I don't really like taking pills and whatnot. I'm not really a fan of that. I like to get it through nutrition. But as this was in my mind, that's a simple way for me to go, okay, keep it topped up. Really, it's looking at what foods can I implement that have that more, like eating more avocados, because they've got your omega-3s, haven't they, in my chia seeds. So been a bit slack with that, but that will get me to using that and pick it up, because we can have deficits, and like you say, it's not so much about the isolated, it's knowing what the lack of is, and to bring that in a way that you can moderate and stick to, but move towards the natural ability. I'm a big believer of that. So for me, right, let me research some more foods. CMOS, full of omega-3, but I've not made it. It's like, okay, come on, you got the supplement there, get the real stuff going and use that until you get into that point. So yeah, it's not to demonize these things, but like what you say about vitamin C, I used to drink them a lot, the dissolvable ones. I like the taste, but they're just full of crap. And it's like, if you eat an orange, 2 oranges, you'll get way more than you're getting in that capsule and in that tablet. So yeah, it's a good point, man.
So even that the omega-3 thing that you mentioned, omega-3, it was largely believed that it comes only from fish. It's actually not. It's the algae, like you just said, the algae that the fish consume. It just shows you how everything in nature, it comes from nature, from a very organic source. It comes from a plant-based source or algae source. But we automatically assume that the best source of protein is meat. Best source of this and that is this. And then you look at it, and actually the protein that the animal ends up taking on comes from a plant-based source. So you go directly to the source, not to the middleman.
Man, they've got a really cool slogan. They say, "We cut out the middle fish," and I was like, very well played. It's not going from you to the fish to the source. You're going straight to the algae, to the source. And yeah, that's, again, it's all in nature. It's all in the nutrients that we require. There's a man called Ray Kurzweil. I don't know if you've heard of Ray Kurzweil. He's a futurist, and he's big on development of technology. So he created the keyboard that Stevie Wonder uses. He created that. He created a device for the blind to be able to scan things and to hear through sound, like a lot with computers. I think he works with Google now. But he would take supplements every single day. There was a documentary about him. It was really interesting about why he was so motivated in futuristics. And it seemed to really stem from because he lost his father, and he wanted his father's consciousness based off his memories to come alive again. And I thought that's really sad. But anyway, yeah, so he was taking supplements every day, and it's a very left-brain thing to do. It's very logical, very, right, I need this with this, with this, with that. But it takes out the essence of everything else that's included with the supplements is vital for it. I remember reading stuff about CBD oils, the extraction of cannabinoids. One, to avoid the THC, which gets people high. They didn't want that, but they would just go for the CBD. But there's so much in the marijuana plant, if it was used for consumption, not to get high, is for what the properties of the plant are, that come through the rest of the plant, because we've got the cannabinoids in the body, a system that works specifically with the plant itself. And all of that goodness that you would get from those nutrients and what's around it, that helps with the balancing effect, is gone when it's just isolated. You're still getting the isolation of what you get for that factor, but the thing that makes everything so great is that, let's look at it from that grand scale of Sadhguru's example of, if you dissect the frog or you dissect your mother, that person has to be dead for you to see how the heart works and the lungs work and the intestines work. You'll not find life in there anymore because it's the unseen elements too. So it's like the whole thing of the process. And yeah, science will never be complete in the sense of if they just look for dissection, because let's go down. You can always keep going down and isolate, but isolation is never the whole. It's one part of, which is very important to remember. To go back into what you said with the comment earlier about the benefits of fasting and how they slow down the mind, and the indulgence of sex and the indulgence of food. Drugs and habits, all those three things are stuff I've definitely struggled with in my life: sex, drugs, and indulgence with nutrition. They were big parts of phases in my life that I was lost in and stuck in. And yeah, in reflection of when you take yourself out of something, any form of addiction, let's just say, people might sugarcoat their habits and not say the word addiction. Our habits are addiction. It's where we do it without thought, and we're actually doing it because we're pulled to do it, and everything else can go to hell because I'm doing this, and that's all there is to it. Those three things I struggled with in those terms. And when you abstain through whatever way gets you there, and you can come out of things, you can become very aware of what we say, not just the isolation of sex or of food or of drugs and drink. It's like, with that came all of this, and I didn't see it or didn't realize it before. Like with sex addiction, they came with how I would view women or the objectification of what that was for. With drug use, the relaxation of too much weed was very unproductive, very unhelpful. You might get the one good thing and that high and that chilled, but it brings so much else with it, which we like to pretend isn't a part of it. Or how I would treat food, addicted to certain foods, and thinking, yeah, but it's good because of this. But what about everything else it's bringing with it? The skin conditions, the how you feel, the lethargy. But it tastes so good, the entertainment and sense values. And it's like, on a fast, you will see that. One, it's great because, as you said before, your sex drive drops when you're fasting too. So the focus and the energy that would go to that is within the body. You're not focused on that anymore. Your desire for the foods, though you might be hungry, once you've got past that, which is honestly quite easy for me to get past that bit. It's like that food that wanted, no, that's done now. That energy is inside. So you can look inside more and you can see the relation of, I want to watch that film with that meal. Why? There's such a big tie there because it's entertainment based and it's habitual based. No products, not getting anything from the food. It's about the habit. It's about, I want to watch food, I want to watch this movie and I want to eat at the same time. Purely, popcorn at the cinema. Why do you give people the loudest food to eat chomp at the cinema? Do you know what I mean? It bothers me that when I go. Like, I go to quiet cinemas now. Unless I'm going to a big IMAX spectacle, I'll put up with it. But I remember watching Interstellar at the cinema. I was jacked up for this film, couldn't wait. And I had this absolute popcorn, nachos and crunching smells of cheese. And I'm like, I want to get into this emotion of the film and I'm having this distraction. Why are you choosing to sell this food at the cinema? But again, because it's an entertainment thing. You know, it's not really for me to say because I'm choosing to go to the base of entertainment where food is sold as entertainment to go with it. Do you know what I mean? It's seeing the multi-layers. And when we fast, I think we really get to dissect that and you can feel the anger or the frustration that comes of the realization that I have to change this now. I wish I didn't know that. I wish I wasn't aware of that. But if I want to go where I say I truly want to go, you accept it and then you get on with it and then it dissolves more over the time. And it really shows, like with any addiction, what movie is it? Trainspotting maybe, where they're like coming off heroin and they're in the room, and sure, loads of films and media have done it, where people are really struggling and you're sweating it out. It's the same with our habits or the frustrations, or maybe in a conscious conversation, you will highlight something to me and I'll be like, bastard. You know, he's saying what he's saying is true and it's right, and now it's like, we will fight it, we will try and resolve it and go, no, don't want to hear that. But when that anger, that trigger's been pressed, that's because we want to defend it. That there's a reason for that, and it's like, because we know there's truth in what that other person is saying, unconsciously we're ready to fight for the views or the habit and defend it any way we want, even though it's not beneficial to us. And the fast will, because it takes away the sexual energy, it takes away the habitual food energy, it takes away the thought, and we become more inward as we're more tired. And you have to think, I can't have loud, showy, flashy films on or too much social media. It's like, just wanted my phone away and not wanting to watch TV because the attraction of the energy is going in. Look at these things and it's like, oh, I can be calm on my own. My mind isn't overthinking when I'm not stimulated by social media. I don't want those kind of foods. I'm not interested in sexual attraction. It's like all in. And you can take all that energy and go, let's build a new me. Let's build a new persona from what we've learned within fasting. And yeah, I've never have a flaw to say about fasting unless you take it too excessively and you don't understand yourself with it. It's so beneficial on many levels.
Yeah, completely. And people that do take it to the extreme, you know, we're talking about monks, they do it for a different reason, you know, they want to experience a completely different side of life. And one of the ways they do it is, there's two things that create lethargy. Eating food, because obviously when you eat something big, especially when it's quite complex, you end up feeling like you need to sleep. So that's one of the reasons why they say you shouldn't eat just before you train, or at least give it about 2 hours or something before you train, because you don't want to create that lethargy when you're in a situation where you want to be alert. And secondly, sleeping. We don't really understand it. And I get it, in today's society, with the way things are, people are not sleeping enough. But at the same time, I've realized that we depend on the idea of sleep. I think it's the idea of sleep that we're so obsessed with, that giving the body a rest. Now, Hindus, and especially monks, whether they're Buddhist or, you know, whether they're Hindu monks, etc., they strongly believe that, you know, there's two things that should be avoided. Three things. Number one is no sex, or obviously masturbation or anything. Number two is a very controlled eating. So you only eat foods that are very pure and they don't cause any dissonance in the body, and try and minimize the ones that cause any sort of problems in the body, especially the rajasic ones and the tamasic ones. And number three is the sleep aspect. So those three things are immediately addressed. The sleep, when my friend Darshan, the one that came to the breathwork, if you remember, just before the lockdown, so when he spent those months with the monks, he kept switching between the two lifestyles. So he kept spending his lifestyle obviously in the UK and doing the traditional stuff, you know, trying to build his career, etc. And then half the time he'll spend with the monks. One of the things he learned, and the hard way he learned, was how little these monks slept. because they meditate so much, the desire to sleep disappeared. And then if you tell that to a person that doesn't understand sleep or, fasting, they'll say to you, that's not good for the body. They'll tell you straight away, that's not good for the body. But actually, it is good for the body. If you are in a state of meditation, what you are doing is you're separating the desire for the body to almost become primitive. So the desire to sleep, the desire to reproduce, and the desire to consume, that starts to become in check. So what these monks would do is sleep at 10 o'clock at night time and wake up at 1 o'clock. So 3 hours sleep, wake up at 1 o'clock, and then spend from 1 o'clock to, they'll take about an hour to get, to shower.
Sorry to interrupt you, mate. I need to go and pee. The amount of water I'm consuming at the minute on this fast. I've got something good to add to what you're saying, but if you keep explaining that, and I'll be right back with you, man.
No, you go for a piss. I'll just cut this out. You back?
I'm good, man. The aspects of being a human, eh?
That's why I needed to go for a piss before this. I thought, I'm not going to risk not being able to think. And I feel like if I'm in that state where I need to go for a piss or I need to go for number 2, I'm not in that frame of mind to think about deeper things.
Yeah, I tell you what, man, it's the liquid that I've been drinking. I mean, you just see how effective the body is. And, even signs like that is like when your urine is clear. I think you can have it too clear. I can't remember the colour chart.
It's just slightly with a tint of yellow.
Yeah, that's the healthy. I mean, mine's like the bloody fresh water from Niagara Falls at the minute. I've just been consuming nothing but water. But it's funny what Sadhguru says, that a hungry man has one problem. A man with a full belly has 1,000, and it's like whatever that nature, that instinct is, it just becomes so consuming. And it's like, even that's like, I really want to listen, I want to join in with this, but this is distracting so much. And I think that's really important with meditation too, is you create your environment as comfortable as you can, your body as soft and as gentle as possible to avoid any of those distractions. It's also why looking after yourself in many different dimensions, relaxing the mind, looking after the body, healthy breathing, healthy eating, are so good for you. They affect so many other things. But sorry, mate. Anyway, back onto what you were saying.
Yeah, we're just talking about the topic of sleep. So these monks would only sleep for 3 hours and they spend most of their time meditating. So meditation, especially when you have your eyes closed, is almost going to the realms of sleep, but pushing it up to a level where the body is in a state where the bodily instincts now are separate from, the spiritual aspects of meditation. So it's quite amazing. And he said, he got into a habit. It took him 3 weeks. The first 3 weeks were hell. The fact that he had to wake up at 10 o'clock, he literally had to be nudged to be woken up at that time as well. So his guru would come over to him and nudge him and say, you need to get up. And then once after the first 3 weeks went by and he got used to it, as soon as his guru got up, boom, he was up. So, and that's the benefits again of not using our alarm clock. I've always noticed that I'm a light sleeper. So if someone walks past, I'll wake up straight away. But I can also fall asleep straight away as well in that state. But if I'm fully awake, then that's it. I'm awake now. I won't be able to go back to sleep again. So it's becoming more in tune with the body. So it comes back to, again, the whole topic of fasting. By fasting and putting yourself in these disciplined situations, you push away the primitive desire. But the one primitive aspect remains, which is, again, like you needed a piss or, a number 2 to excrete. Those aspects will remain because obviously you need to, that's the release of the body and getting rid of the, whatever's building up in the body, you're excreting it out. But apart from that, the other stuff become very much in check. And again, in a society where, sex is everywhere, is it what people want? And people think that's not what you want. But once you start indulging in those realms and say, okay, if that's not what I want and I should be indulging as much as possible in sex and food, you start to understand there are obviously negative effects of that. And then you have to make sure that you are aware of those negative effects. And the only way you're going to be aware is if you fast from that. So you no longer indulge in sex or you no longer indulge yourself in food.
Yeah, definitely like that. Because if all you've known is one thing, how can you know anything else? And then the abnormalities of that indulgence in whichever realm it is become normal. And that's when you're in danger. Because if that abnormality is what you know is normal, I mean, you look at the degeneration of society away from higher virtues or morals, not in a sense of superiority, but in health and benefit. It's degraded. Do you know what? Oh, speaking of this, my friend Jake Carter on Instagram, he's really very knowledgeable about chemistry and how the body works. He's in Australia now, and he was putting these things up on his Instagram currently about coronavirus and sort of conspiracy and how Australia's being treated. Like, he put videos of what's going on in the streets, and like police getting violent with the wrong kind of people, really, abnormalities. And there was a part that he'd said about the vaccines, that they've not worked on the monkeys they've tried it on in Oxford. They're now not working, and then this second wave coming in China, and just, yeah, it was like how we're conditioned to see certain things because the normal, they use the word new normal, and that word new normal is like, that gets people to think, oh, this is how it is now. So that new normal is actually degradation of where we are socially and connected. They're saying the new normal is going to be, we might be in here for 6 months or a year, but we learn to get on with it. It's like you accept you are where you are in your surroundings, but you don't accept that it has to remain that way. You work towards, how can we fix this and go better? You have to look at who's leading us and why we're leading us. And it can get very, very dangerous when we're lost in what it is that we currently accept, and to always be able to reflect and to listen to other views, or if we're unsure. Whether sometimes it's obvious, sometimes we do know and we're just turning a blind eye, or we're so lost in it, or we don't have anything else in our life that we stay there, but we still know it's detrimental and damaging. So to come out of that through a period of abstinence, and to reflect, and to try and build a life around the traits and the virtues that are of benefit to us and that do wake us up, and they give us meaning and purpose in life. And that's its whole separate conversation, what we choose for the meaning and what we believe our purpose is in life. And to commit ourselves fully to something. I think when you've explored enough avenues, enough indulgence of food, enough sex, enough drugs, and you realise it's not there, it's just the same perpetual life. Okay, let's get on the path and let's commit to something different, which brings benefit outside to the world and something that you enjoy. Then you're winning.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like from my previous relationships, if I look back at it now, retrospective, it's always been my sort of habits, of my sort of Ayurvedic habits that used to cause problems for most people. Why are you not consuming from outside, or you don't tend to eat from outside and you're very fussy with your food. Well, I feel like when people say you are fussy with something, it's because that person now is in a state of mind where he's become more sensitive, or she's become more sensitive to the body and how the body responds. And because you haven't reached that level yet, you almost see it as a hindrance. So for a lot of people, being fussy is quite a hindrance. And for me now, when someone is very particular about certain foods, I almost see it as, they feel very sensitive about a certain food. It's like, wow, it's how we've defined allergies. The only reason we found out allergies is because a person has become so fussy to a level where the body is becoming fussy. It's almost saying, I can't handle this type of food. So my ex-business partner Shaz is a good friend of mine still, and his missus is intolerant to nuts. She gets really bad reactions to the point where she'll get into an epileptic seizure just by consuming a small amount of nuts, peanuts and stuff. So it's just understanding that the body is responding, and the body will do whatever it needs to do to survive. So if you decide that, I absolutely love chocolate, but it's causing you problems in your body, and you're going to consume it whilst taking medication that suppresses those symptoms, eventually it's just going to pile up, and you're going to get a negative response from it. And then the same with sex. And this is why, again, it comes back in a full circle to why fasting is so important, and I just think that people need to clock on a bit. And I think fasting had a negative thing going for it for a number of years because it was associated with religion and that sort of esoteric practice. But now, once a scientist caught up on it and seen the benefits of it in a scientific sense, and again, I feel as though we're only dipping our toes in it, scientifically speaking. I just think there's so many different aspects to fasting that we're just not looking at. Whether it's physical fasting, or whether it's mental fasting, or whether it's sexual fasting, it's just something that we all need to start practicing. And it brings about a sense of discipline in the body as well.
Yeah, imagine having a setup where maybe you do, depending on the ability of the participant, 2 weeks of a fast from a certain thing. Or maybe a 12-month program where you do a month of a fast from something you treat. Like first you might start a month away from any processed foods, then the next month, and then you can have them again if you like, or integrate them in a more profound manner. The second month you fast away from sex and masturbation, and you see how you feel after that month. the third month you stay away from any narcotics or alcohol, just to see, because it's not like you're not taking those things away from your life because it's going to cause detriment, because it won't. At the very least, it will just cause you why am I always pulled to those things? And really, you can 100% live without any of them. So why not see how that works? And it's not to demoralize or make people thinking, oh, what you're doing is wrong, because all of those things can be done healthily. They can. You can use recreational drugs healthily. Sex can be very healthy. Food obviously can be very healthy. Like, again, I said, I'm going to have a Japanese or a Mexican tonight and watch a film. Even though I've experienced what I have with the fasting, that was on the cards, and I'm not doing that until I've done what it is that I want to do, and I'll do that. But always keeping in mind, these are the one-offs. They're not what your lifestyle is. They're just an enjoyment factor of. And that's when they can be done healthily. It's just knowing what our slippery scale is. If I do that 3 nights, maybe it's gone and it's back to normal then. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's noticing where we are on our scale and how we can employ that into a good life and a healthy and vibrant life.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I think I was going to mention another topic, but I think we'll save it for another time. I think we need to do a part 2 of the food aspect. But I was just going to say, we also need to talk about modern day commercialism, because of now that we have this amazing ability to get food from across the world, we don't seem to understand that certain foods do not resonate with the people that are natives to this country. So, for example, for me, consuming wheat was just a natural thing, because we had chapatis that were made out of wheat flour. So it was very rare for an Indian to have any, intolerances towards wheat. But now, because we live in a society where, we're taking foods from different sides of the world and we're consuming it, I strongly believe certain foods are great for certain types of people. It goes back into the Ayurvedic process, but also culturally speaking as well. Certain foods are only good for a certain type of people. So, for example, Indians that live in India, they can consume a large amount of ghee and not get the side effects of doing that. So, not getting blood problems, blood sugar problems, cholesterol, high cholesterol, etc. But in a country where the climate is different, and again, it's so many factors: the climate, the lifestyle you are living, how you are thinking, how you're going about your daily life will determine what foods you can and can't consume. And again, there's a opposite effect as well. So what types of food you're consuming will determine what kind of state of mind you are to do those activities. So it's something that when you talk about, and I think, for you, like we were just talking about passion fruit, I think a certain quantity of passion fruit works with us, and that quantity is a very low quantity compared to where passion fruits are grown in. In those regions in the world, those people can consume large quantities of that fruit because of the environment they're living in. And I think it's something that we don't really look at, because we get food from all across the world, and we feel as though if those people say that these foods are healthy, then I should be able to consume just as much as those people are consuming.
Definitely, yeah, it is. It's that awareness of your environment and the effect on it. And like I say, that one passion fruit, I'll just have one in the morning. It's like, it's great. It's wonderful. And also, I wouldn't want to have, you said having 6, however many it was that you had a day, that would be, they're so lovely. But even that overindulgence, it takes away from the specialty, the essence of how enjoyable that thing is. That's when we become ungrateful in a sense, isn't it? I'm not saying you were in that circumstance. I mean, we can relate that to anything. I've just bought this, let's go material, massive big TV. Right, it's great. 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, you can kind of get bored of the things, and that applies to this chocolate I found. Oh, it's really good. And now we eat it every day and it's no longer that good anymore. And, also we adapt to it and we lose the speciality of it. But what you said there, like the environment that we're in, is a big part of Ayurveda, is the food we're eating around us that we're used to going. And that applies to everything. Like, even our build-up, me and Abs were out in the sun yesterday, so we're doing the podcast today, to get out in that weather. And mate, I had burnt myself to a crisp. We were out for like 3 hours in it, and I was all red and sore last night, and this morning still a bit tender just on the arms. But that's because I'm a pasty northerner who's used to the grey clouds and the rain, and Abs is, of Jewish heritage. She's got Israeli blood, and so she looked beautiful, golden and brown, and she could spend all day in the sun. Because of her genetic input. Mine is different. I can't do that. And it's even on that level, just being so aware of who we are and how we're responding, not to neglect or push the world away, but no half structure. If you want to go in space, make sure you've got a bloody spacesuit on, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Right. I think that's a perfect place to wrap up. These podcasts are getting more and more in depth. Well, the more that we don't really have a topic when we go into the podcast. So I'm really enjoying this. And I think, yeah, like I said, we'll do a part 2 at some point and we'll go into those realms. So yeah, thank you so much, Craig. This was podcast number
13?
13, was it? I'm really bad at this. 13, I'm really bad at this.
Yeah, some of that omega-3s for
That's
you,
probably
buddy.
what I need. Yeah, this is podcast number 13. And as usual, you can find this on YouTube, Spotify, and a preview will be on Instagram. Right. Thank you, Craig. I will see you on the next one.
Thank you very much, man.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Stay conscious. That was your line.
It's our line, brother.
Right.